So, Planet Cryos. Where can I find AMD stuff on your channel? Well, here's the start of it. Hey there guys, and welcome back to Planet Cryos. So yes, I have not had AMD systems, whether it's a repair or a review for any sort of nature, other than a couple little videos. I did a cleaning on one build, that was my father's old PC, and then just a couple videos ago I had a viewer's PC that I was working on which had a AMD system in it. So it got me to thinking that I'd like to have a couple of parts on hand in case I go ahead and work on those systems. I didn't spend a ton of money on this stuff. It's basic stuff. It's this was just a AM4 socket CPU. It's a Ryzen 5, and this is the 5600G. The G at the end stands for graphics. If it had like an X at the end, it would have no graphics, and you'd have to rely on the graphics card for video output. So I went with this. It was relatively cheap. I got this on sale for $130, I believe, on Amazon. You know, when these first launched, these were like, I don't know, $250 to $300 back then, something like that. So yeah, so this hasn't even been opened, and this says graphics built in. So that's another way that you can tell from that. And we're going to pair it with the Gigabyte B550M. It's the DS3H motherboard. And this is a micro, what do you call it? Micro motherboard. So we are going to pair it with this. This is nothing special. These regularly go for about $105 to $110. I got this one on sale for $90. So not too bad of a, just a basic motherboard for troubleshooting. I just put in any CPU for the AM4 socket just to see if it actually works. And that'll let me know that. But what I need to do with this stuff is I actually need to put both these on, put some RAM in it. This also comes with a stock cooler, so we don't have to rely on any aftermarket cooler for it. So I'm going to put that on, put some RAM in there, hook up a power supply, cable, and I just want to make sure that it boots. If I can get to the BIOS, we're good. I'm not going to install Windows on this or anything like that. If we can't get to the BIOS, in either event, so I need to back up here a little bit. If we get to the BIOS, great. I'm still going to do a BIOS update so long that it needs it. If it does need it, we're going to do it one way and one way only, which is the Q flash. I have never attempted this, and I want to make that clear. This is my first time. I kind of know what to do, so it's not going to be like I'm going to be in the real dark, but I've seen it done and I've read about it. So we're going to do the Q flash and make sure that it flashes to the latest updated BIOS, and I want to make sure that we all understand how to do the Q flash. It's pretty simple. You only need the motherboard, power supply, and then a cable, or not a cable, not even a cable. You just need the motherboard and power supply. You don't need a CPU, you don't need RAM, and you don't need graphics card. Just the CPU and the motherboard and power supply. That is the only two things, other than obviously you need the thumb drive with the appropriate BIOS on here. Now, I want to make it clear, in a previous video when I was doing a BIOS, this was a while ago, but this particularly is for Asus, and it may be for this one. I'm going to find out when I download. But when your BIOS tells you to rename the BIOS, the name of the BIOS, you don't have to if you're doing this through the BIOS. You don't have to rename it. But if you're doing a Q flash like I'm going to show you, it has to be named a specific file name. Otherwise, it won't be able to read it, or you could put something in there that it might get a little jumbly, and then your motherboard is completely dead. I don't believe this has a BIOS backup on it, so if we do this wrong or something, then my motherboard is bricked. But the lucky part is it was only $90 versus, you know, a $200, $300, $400 plus motherboard. You know, for instance, my She-Hulk build right there is an $800 motherboard, at least when I bought the motherboard earlier this year. So, yeah, let's get going on this. I'm going to download the BIOS. If you want to learn how to find the BIOS, where to get it, how to download it, I do have a gigabyte version on updating your BIOS, so go ahead and check that one out. I can show you pretty much step by step on how to get that done. Whether you rename the BIOS, doing it the regular way or not, doesn't really matter. It was just an extra step, but I want to be clear, you do not have to do that. They usually come with like a rename tool. You don't have to do that if you're going through the BIOS to update the BIOS, but if you're doing it without the CPU in, without the RAM in, without anything attached to the motherboard, then you have to rename it, because the motherboard and the BIOS on the motherboard has to talk directly to your file that you have, and it only knows one thing. So, with that said, let's get going over here. I'm going to get this out, and I'll just show you it, and yeah, let's get going. Alright, so I just wanted to show you the motherboard. Alright, it's very basic. I love this is my first motherboard that is a not the traditional ATX standard. It is the micro, and kind of like it. I kind of like having something a little smaller. I always wanted to do a build of this size. I just never had the money to do another one like this, but it's very basic on the back. We even have a DVI output, which is pretty old. I mean, it's only a 2-generational motherboard, but it's cheaper, so you figured you're going to replace an older motherboard that might have an older connector on it. But we do have we even have the PS2 connector for the keyboard / mouse combo. We have 2 USB 2 ports. We have an HDMI. We have 2 USB 3.0 ports. So that's a 4 total of USB 2.0. Then we have another one 3.0, so that's 3 total of 3.0. And then we have this white USB that may be a regular 2.0, but it's also for your BIOS FlashBack. So, or the Q Flash. Those are the same thing, just I think depending on the manufacturer. I think Asus is FlashBack and Gigabyte is Q Flash. So what we're going to do is we're going to end up putting our thumb drive into that white USB. And you have a standard audio jack system here, nothing surround sound or anything crazy like that. So when we get that Wi-Fi in there, when we get the USB thumb drive in there, there's a little button on here. Okay. It's a little push button. And that is what's going to start it. So once we have it all plugged in, we have our flash drive in there, all we do is push that button, and away it goes. There should be a little LED light just above it indicating a fast flash, which means it's reading. After the LED stops flashing fast, it'll start going a lot slower, and that indicates that it's writing it. So those are the things we got to watch out for, and we want to be very patient. And last but not least, we have still my sealed box for the processor. And I'm kind of excited to work with this. I think it's kind of crazy that I haven't touched an AMD system. But there we go. We have our nice AMD with the Go Faster sticker, as always. And what else is included with the box is some dumb instructions and somehow we're going to get to this heat sink, which we're going to use. And let's see. Oh, that already had thermal paste on it. See, I already made a mistake. We want to take it out kind of like this. It's okay. It wasn't like a huge mistake or anything. I didn't touch it. But it comes with a plastic on it. And, of course, when we take that out, it has your thermal paste already applied. So that's good enough, and then I'll clean it when I put this all away. So, yeah, let me get everything hooked up, and we'll test this out. Alright, so I got my power supply out, my testing power supply. We're going to get this 20-pin and 4-pin adapter. We're going to get this hooked up to the motherboard, hopefully properly here. And slip it right in there. Boom. We have that. Alright, before I hook up this 8-pin, we're going to grab the CPU. And the way to install these is you're going to look for a couple things. One, we have a triangle right here. Alright, you see this? There's a little triangle right here, and that will match up to this triangle. So you just set it in there. And these have a whole array of pins. And these have a whole array of pins. So there is a bunch of pins on here. AMD has now switched over to LGA, land grid array, because they have so many pins now. So we're going to put that in just like that, give it a little wiggle wiggle, and then we are going to lower this just like that. Anyway, we have our CPU power supply right here, power supply cable, and you need to throw both of these together. We're going to put it in. We're going to hopefully put it on. Oop. Get this to go in here. Sometimes these are a pain, but that's okay. Alright, that's in. Now we're going to put our heat sink on. And our CPU header is right here. It doesn't really matter for this one right now. Okay, so I just realized that I do have to take these brackets off, and I did not know I had to do that. See guys, this is what learning is all about. Sometimes you don't know what to do or how to do it, but the enjoyment is trying to figure it out. If you knew how to do everything, I don't think it would be fun either. So let's get these brackets off and get this other thing installed. And then I'll probably throw these brackets right back on. And now we're going to take our heat sink again and place this in such a way. Now, this does matter what direction it goes on. It can either go on like this, because the distance between here and here is different between here and here. Ooh, so between here and here is different than here and here. So this can only go on like this or 180 degrees around the other way. So I'm just going to choose this for the moment. And that sits on there like so. But you know what I'm not liking is you can't get a screwdriver in here easily. That's kind of poopy. Okay, so some I just noticed that I wouldn't do this if I had to choose again. And basically, on this board, it's kind of hard to see, but where this fan shroud is, it jots out a little bit. So there's a little bit right here, and it's covering at least the first slot of the RAM. Now, for testing purposes, I'm just going to probably put the RAM just in the first channel, I'm not going to worry about the second one. Maybe I'll put it in this one or something for right now. But yeah, that's unless you take this shroud off and turn it around. That's just the way it is, and I don't know why they would do that. But so this would only be able to go on the other direction, which is strange. But hey, live and learn, live and learn. And we're gonna put the fan connector on, just like that. Okay, so I'm just going to take you for a ride on going and obtaining your new BIOS. I want to make sure I have it before I start this procedure, just to have it. So you go to Google or Microsoft Edge or any of your browsers, and we're going to type in right here in the Google search. We're going to type in the Gigabyte. The B550M, and that is the DS3H. And then one of our first options here is the gigabyte.com, and it is our key or our motherboard right here verbatim. Go ahead and click on that. It displays it. It looks exactly the same. We know it's the same by all this. Now we're going to go to the support page, which is down here, not up here. Okay, sometimes they have service and support. That's for the main website. We want support for the actual product. So we're going to go to there. Now for Gigabyte, we're going to scroll all the way down here where it says BIOS. Then we're going to scroll back up. And you can see all these F1, F2, F3. It jumps from F3 right to F10, probably because the ones in between were no good. They found some problems. It goes to F12, F13, 14, 15A, and 15. And we're going to click download. It pops up down here, but we're going to go ahead and get rid of all this. We're going to open up our File Explorer. This is Windows 11, by the way, if you didn't recognize it. We're going to go to our downloads folder. We have our, I'm going to get rid of these, because we do not need those. We have our motherboard BIOS. We're going to extract the files. We do a right click and extract all, and we're just going to go right to the same page. We're just going to extract them. All we have to do is rename this file extension, which is our B55MDS3H.F15. The F15 is our BIOS update, and it's usually the biggest file in there after you download and extract the files. And what we're going to do is we're going to rename this to gigabyte.bin. And make sure it's spelled correctly. We have Gigabyte .bin. And it's going to give you a warning. If you change this, it might not be readable type thing or usable. So we're going to click yes. This is what we need to read it. So we're going to go into our BIOS. I do want to make sure that it's formatted correctly. I'm pretty sure it's in FAT32. Oh, they have more options here. I want to see what the properties say. So we are in FAT32. Okay, so we're going to drag this, and only that, to the new, to the new location, which would be in the flash drive. So now that we're set with that, we can close that window. We can close that window. We can extract our thumb drive, and this BIOS is now ready to be installed. Okay, I just want to show we have our power supply hooked up now to the motherboard, which is our main connector here. We also have our CPU power coming in right here. Our CPU is installed, our heatsink is installed, the fan is connected to the motherboard, and we have this little accessory power button connected right here, so I can turn the motherboard on or off. And oh, by the way, I still got to hook up this for the monitor. And now what we want to do make sure this is all hooked up. Because I want to make sure and see if we're going to get any video output from the monitor itself. And let me back out of here a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and push this little, oh, which is the power button, which is the reset? Okay. So power, LEDs, switch, and H. So I'm thinking that is this one. Oh, this one? Oh, I have to turn the power on. That might help. That might help. There we go. That's spinning. Now I want to see if I get any output from the monitor here. It might go back to that other PC that's over here. Yeah, which it did. So we got to do this a couple of times to see if we have any output. Nope, still nothing. I might have to turn the or unplug the other PC, which I think I'm gonna do, just so it doesn't try and go to that anymore. So we officially have nothing yet. There we go. So we are in. So it does not need the flashback if we did not want it to. And just like that, guys, we are in the BIOS. And let's see what version we have. We do have F14. So it is not the newest version, but we are very close. And you can see we have the Ryzen 5 5600G with Radeon graphics. We have 16 gigabytes of RAM. So at least the single channel is currently working. I will off camera check the other thing, but I do have to remove, you can probably see right here, maybe a little bit better. You can see how this heatsink or the fan shroud is covering the first slot. So this whole entire thing has to get rotated 180 degrees in order to check that other channel. Other than I could just put, you know, one RAM stick in here and check that. But I'd rather check both slots to make sure they're both working. All right, so it looks like we are good to go. We are in the BIOS, and now all I got to do is the Q flash, and I wanted to demonstrate how that is done. Even though this will be my first time, we can enjoy it together and learn a little bit together, as I have not worked with AMD before so much. I mean, the Q flash it's not pertained to AMD. Intel, it's the same way you would do it for both. So, but yeah, like I can show you, we are in the BIOS. So let me shut this thing down. I'm going to take the CPU completely out, and then we are going to flash the BIOS. So stay with me for a minute. Okay, as you can see, our CPU is now out. We only have our two power connectors still hooked up, and there's no power button hooked up anymore out here. There is no HDMI cable. So this is very bare bones. Our power supply right now is still off. We have our BIOS now in here. We're going to stick it in the white USB connector on the side here. Matter of fact, we don't even need the RAM in it. I forgot. We can take this RAM right out. We know these two sticks work. And we're going to test it in dual channel probably after this. But look at that. Bare bones. Nothing to it. The only thing we're going to do now is flip our power supply on. Our button over here for the BIOS or the Q flash is right back here. It's just a little push button. And we're going to flip our power. Make sure your thumb drive is in. Power supply on. And now we're just going to hit this. And now you can see the LED starting to flash back there. We do not have an LED indicator on the actual thumb drive, but we are going to pay attention only to this LED back here. That is it. When that goes off completely, we're done. But don't touch anything. Walk away for a little bit. Okay, did you notice how it went from speedy to now slow? It is now currently writing the information to the BIOS chip before it was reading it, making sure it's all correct. Okay, so you can see that the light went out. It is not flashing anymore. And you can also see our power supply. You may have not seen it spinning, but this was spinning the whole time that was operating. It has now shut itself down. This all indicates that the motherboard BIOS is now done and complete, and it's up to date. It has completed successfully, so we can go ahead and turn the power supply off. We can pull our BIOS out. Okay, so now I'm basically just going to reinstall the CPU cooler. I'm going to put all the RAM in all the slots to check both channels, and yeah, just hook everything back up. We'll make sure it works, and then we'll wrap this video up. Alright guys, so moment of truth. We have everything back on, ready to go. I'm ready to push this button, and wrong side. And now we're booting. Moment of truth. It may have to train the RAM, especially that we put extra RAM in there. But we just want to make sure that we get back to the BIOS, make sure it's updated to the F15. And like I said, we'll be good and wrap this video up pretty fast right after this. I'm trying to just stall for some time. Of course, especially after that, give your system time to boot and to get back into your BIOS or your Windows if you did that. Still waiting on a signal here. It's slowing up, speeding down. I just want to make sure I'm on the correct input. And that's display port, so that's the wrong one. There's HDMI. The CPU is going up and down, and here we go. BIOS has been reset. Please reconfigure your BIOS setup items if needed. So we're going to just hit enter for OK. So you really got to be patient to get into these BIOSes. It can take a minute and a half, up to like 90 seconds really to get back into your BIOS after a major update like that. So we have our current version now is F15. So it looks like it's seeing all the RAM perfectly fine. So we know both of our channels on our motherboard and the CPU are working correctly. And of course we have no bootable devices found, which is normal because we don't have any hard drives hooked up to this. So yeah, I say that was a success. Alright guys, so that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something. I know I learned something between quite a few different things that I kind of mentioned throughout this. One in particular was the way that heatsink goes, but that really had nothing to do with the BIOS flashback or the Q flash, which is mainly what I wanted this video focused on. So, but overall, just be patient, take your time, make sure you have that file name changed. If you're doing a gigabyte one, make sure it's changed to that gigabyte.bat. bin. With Asus or ASRock or some of the other manufacturers, make sure you change that name accordingly. I know Asus has a renaming tool where you could just do a click on it, it pops up a script, and all you do is hit pretty much any key and it changes the name for you. It's actually pretty simple. You can manually change it too, but nevertheless, it gives you that nice option where you don't even have to think about it and make like a typo error. The system will actually do it for you. So if you have an Asus motherboard, check that out. It's just the BIOS renaming tool. And when you download the BIOS from Asus's website, it actually has it. You don't have to download anything separate. It comes with the BIOS. When you extract all of those files, it comes with that. So it'll just say BIOS renaming. You click on, do a double click, I think, and it'll open up a command prompt, and you just, I think, hit any key and it renames it for you. It's automatic, so which is very nice and convenient from Asus. But yeah, so that's it. I'm gonna wrap this up now. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you wish, and share this file with your share this video. You share a bunch of files too. Send them a bunch of files. See if you can get some viruses. No, don't do that. So anyway, yeah, share this video with your family and friends. Also, hit that thumbs up button. Let me know you show some love. And I don't know. Till next time, guys. Take care.